gave me to eat when I was thirsty. You gave me to drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. Mother Teresa, these are words which we would all agree with. But the difference between us and you is that we don't put them into action. We don't do anything about them. Even though we might want to do it, we still don't. Now, all of these words don't, to me, to you, just don't mean food and drink and clothes. They mean love. When did it all start for you? When did you start to put these words into action?
Since 1946, actually doing this close contact with the poorest of the poor. But before that, it was a vocation. From the time I was 12 years old.
12.
That calling to belong to Jesus.
Now, at that time you were in Skopje in Yugoslavia, where you were born.
With my own people.
Was it difficult to leave your people?
That was the sacrifice that Christ asked of us, no? That because we were a very happy and very united family. But God asked for the sacrifice from my people and from me. And,
were you a religious family? Had you been brought up to believe, as you do now, that everything was for God?
Yes, I think my mother was a very holy woman, and so she imparted that love for God and love for the neighbor very much into all her children's hearts.
Now, when you got the calling and when you realized that you had to give up everything, what did you do then? How did you go about it? I mean, 12 was very young.
Well, I didn't leave home till I was 18. And then I got in contact with some of our missionaries in India. And through them, I got in contact with the Loreto nuns. And then 46 years ago, I came to Radfarnham. And from there, I went to India in 1929 and finished my novitiate and vows. And I was with the Loreto nuns for 20 years in India.
Can I just go back a little bit to Rathfarnham? Because in Ireland, you know, we are a little bit interested in your time in Rathfarnham. How much do you remember of that time?
Well, I remember yesterday when I went to Rathfarnham after 46 years. I saw the places where I had been as a young postulant, and I remember the community room and the chapel and the refectory. So that brought back all those happenings that were happening at that time.
Now, when you were there, had you that longing? Did it start there for your vocation, as you call it, a vocation within a vocation?
No, it was not at that time. It was 20 years after, when I was in India.
When you'd gone back to India?
Yes. And I left Rathfarnham only after six weeks, and I went to India I joined in October, and then in January I went to India to do the novitiate there.
Now, you were a teacher, Mother. Were you a good teacher?
I couldn't tell you. I think you'll have to ask those whom I taught.
Did you enjoy teaching?
But I loved teaching. I loved teaching.
Now, back in India 20 years later, when you got the feeling that you had to do something else, you had to go out to the poor, how did you go about that? Because you had taken your final vows, and it must have been difficult for you to give up the final vows as such, was it?
I didn't have to give up anything, because vocation is belonging to Christ. And the work is only a means to put our love for Christ into action. And so I had only to change, so to say, the way of work, the means I had to change to work for the poorest of the poor. So my vocation was a continuation of belonging to Christ and being only His.
So you left the Loreto, but you kept with you all the vows, the spiritual feelings.
Yes. And then when we had our own, I left Loreto in 48, and in 1950, the Holy Father approved of the new congregation of the Missionaries of Charity. And then in the new congregation, I took the vows of the new congregation of love, poverty, chastity, obedience, and charity.
When you talk, Mother, of the new congregation, did you start this congregation the second you left? It went with you. You became a missionary of charity instead of being a Loreto.
Yes, we started the approval came from Rome in 1950 on the 7th of October. And since then, the little congregation, first it became a diocesan congregation. And after 15 years, it became a pontifical. Now we are a pontifical congregation with 850 sisters in it.
As many as that?
Yes.
And do you find it easy to get sisters? Because vocations have gone down for other orders.
God has been very wonderful to us. We have 182 novices in our 3 novitiates, one in Rome and one in Calcutta and one in Melbourne. And I had news the other day from Calcutta to say that 109 aspirants have joined last June.
Good gracious,
Yes.
because 2 would be a lot in Ireland, in the average
It's
congregation.
a tremendous gift of God for us, because we are getting vocation from all over the world now.
Now, Mother, you've decided to become a missionary of charity. You've gone into the streets of Calcutta. Can you tell me how you actually went about it? Because just to talk about somebody going into the streets and starting a new order and helping the dying, how did you actually, what was your first contact with a dying person?
I picked up the first person from the street, and I found a woman lying in the street, eaten up by rats and so on. Then I took her to the nearest hospital, and they didn't seem to want her there. But because I insisted so much, at last they took her in. And from there I decided that I will find a place for them myself and take care of them. Then I went to the municipality and I asked them for a place only, that the rest I would do myself for them. And they took me to this Kali temple in Kalighat and offered me a place of rest that they use for the pilgrims that come to worship the goddess Kali. And we have been there for 22 years now, and we have picked over 29,000 people from the streets of Calcutta in these 22 years.
Now, when did your sisters start joining you? Because you were alone when you started, when you picked up that first lady.
Yes. Since 1929, not 29, that was the year I joined, but since 1949.
And how did that happen? Did you ask somebody? Or
No, the first sisters to join were the students that I had taught in Loreto. The first group we were about 12 by the time the congregation was established. And since then, girls from all over the world have been joining.
what sort of girls were the Indian girls? Were they a very high caste?
Mixed. We have high, middle and ordinary. And that is the most beautiful part of these young girls. So fully dedicated and determined to give their all to Christ. And they are all very anxious to live that life of poverty, because for us it's very important. If we really want to know the poor, we must know what is poverty. And that's why in our society, poverty is our freedom and our strength.
So that we would have poverty then, in your words, right here, in our homes here in Ireland. You don't have to go to the streets of Calcutta, is that what you're saying? That there's a lot, poverty is a lot of things.
There is two kinds of poverty. We have the poverty of material. Like for example, in some places like in India and Ethiopia and Yemen and other places, where the people are hungry for a loaf of bread, a real hunger. But there is much deeper, much greater hunger, and that is the hunger for love, and that terrible loneliness and being unwanted, unloved, being abandoned by everybody. Like some people you find in what they call them shut-ins, people that are sleeping in the streets of London and are found in the homes. Maybe that kind of unwantedness, unloved. Even in our own homes we may have somebody who is handicapped like that, and nobody takes any notice. Nobody even recognizes that there is this child, this man, this woman who is hungry for love, hungry to be recognized and to accept with respect and love the person.
When most of us, Mother, think of the appallingness of Calcutta and Rome, you know, the poor areas of these places where you have gone into, and Bangladesh and all these places, we think, how on earth does she do that? How on earth can one person look at all of that and say, how can I help all of this? Do you ever feel absolutely despondent that you are doing what the whole nation should be doing? Do you ever feel that it's a very heavy burden?
I don't feel like that, because for me, I can do only one, because Jesus is only one, and I take Jesus at his word. He has said, you did it to me. And so my sisters and I and the brothers, we take one person, individual person, one person at a time. We can serve only one at a time. We can love only one at a time. Yet the whole work, though it sounds so big and so much and all that, yet it is but only a drop in the ocean. But if we didn't do that little drop, that ocean would be one drop less. And so we have no reason to be despondent or discouraged or unhappy about it, because we are doing it to Jesus. So he had said, I was hungry and you fed me.
So in each one you see
Yes,
Jesus.
it is Jesus, because Jesus has said so. You did it to me. And that's why the poor more and more become the hope of salvation for mankind, because we are going to be judged on what we have done to them, what we have been to them, how we have accepted them.
This is what you said to the Senate
Yes.
committee in Washington, that the poor with the hope of
Yes,
mankind.
yes.
How did they take that?
They took it very well, and I think it has had a tremendous influence, because they have already working at it to answer the call of the poor of the world. Because I feel if the world today turns its back to the poor, I think they are turning their back to Christ.
You talked, Mother, a few moments ago about the thousands that you have taken into your home in Calcutta. Now, Calcutta is a very large place and the poor are very many. How many do you turn away? How many have you not got room for?
I don't know. Up to now, we have never had to turn anybody away.
Never.
Because there's one more bed, one more plate of rice, one more blanket to cover.
How is that?
Well, I don't know. Again, we take God at His word, because we depend solely on divine providence that comes through to us through the love of the people. And so He has taken care, and He has shown such thoughtfulness and such kindness for our people in small details. And so we have no reason but to accept what He has said, that we are more important to Him than the birds of the air and the flowers of the garden.
There are a lot of people,
Yes.
Mother, particularly in America, we'll say, where you've had just visited and talked to the Washington Committee, who have a lot of money and who probably have very good intentions, but who would never in a million years do what you're doing, or indeed part with any of that money willingly. How do you get through to that type of person?
By giving them a chance to do works of love,
Such as?
to help somebody in their own family first, and then next door neighbor, to find the poor around them. And then once that contact is made, I never ask for money, I never ask them to give me, but I always ask them, come and see, come and touch. And once that contact has been made, they know what they have to do.
Are you in great need of money? Because I know that you don't take any government grants of any kind.
I have never been in need, but I accept, I never refuse what people give, and I accept whatever. So having nothing, yet possessing all things.
Now you have co-workers all over the
Yes.
world, and you have them in Ireland. Are we generous? Are the Irish good to you?
Very generous, and it's been a wonderful time now with them. Especially I'm very anxious, especially now that I've come round to meet our co-workers. We have nearly over 40,000 around the world, and we are trying, because a co-worker is a way of life, and we are trying to bring that love and peace and joy